Hello. So, welcome to our first conversation, and it's on kindness. Personally, I put it first because to me, kindness to others, but also to yourself, is the most important self defining practice. Now, philosophically speaking, there are various ways of defining kindness, and we can make it into a very complicated concept, but by and large, you, me, and everyone else in the world already knows that kindness is deeply connected to how we behave towards others, right? How we talk to them, how we look at them, right? The way we address other people. So, in so many ways, kindness is outward tending. It always involves the body of the other, our human others, our animal others in the world, the climate, the trees, the plants. Kindness is the interaction we share with the world. And if we visualize that, this idea that we are not autonomous individual beings just living in our own bubble, that we move through the world, we walk on this earth, right? We till it, we dig it up, we build on it, right? We breathe this air. How we do that, if guided by kindness, right, would immediately transform the way we think of our lives and our interaction with others. So let's think in human terms. I mean, just draw on your own experiences, everyday mundane experiences. You had a stressful day at work, right? You are headed back home. You stop at a coffee shop just to get a cup of coffee. And the person on the other side of the counter who's taking your order, if they just give you a smile and ask you politely, "How may I help you?" that in itself is an act of kindness, right? Now, chances are that those employees, right, they are told to be polite to customers. Maybe it's part of their job, right? But they could be very, stoic in their appearance. They could be very professional. But if they are kind towards you, you will feel the ease of the tension that you were carrying from your office. That's how important these simple acts of kindness can be to us. I mean, just imagine you are in the mall, right, and you see someone walking around who looks lost or distressed, right? Maybe at that moment, that person is absolutely not in the need of huge help, but just a kind question, right? Do you need help? How many times do we just pass by these instances where we could just say a couple of words to make someone feel better, right? And we don't do that because of decorum and the kind of persona that we create in the world, right? So that's how simple kindness is. Just a few good words. And then beyond that, it's up to your capacity, what you can do, you know. And I always go back to this anecdote from my own life. When I was getting married the first time, and when my ex-wife called her mom to tell her that she was getting married to me, I had not met her mom. Her mom only asked one question, and that was, "Kare wa shinsetsu desu ka?" Is he kind? And she said, "Yeah, he's kind." And then her mother said, "Then you'll be fine." And I've often wondered about that question from that mother to her daughter about this stranger that the daughter was marrying. I've put myself in her shoes in my ex-mother-in-law's shoes. And I've asked myself, if I had a daughter, right, and she was getting married to someone that I didn't know, that's the question I'll ask, right? I won't ask what kind of a job does he have, or is he a doctor, but is he kind, right? And the reason is that if this person is kind, and you can reverse the genders, of course, then they will have everything. Then they'll take care of your daughter or your son. They'll be generous. They'll be loving, right? And they will not be afraid of showing their love and tenderness and emotions. All of that is connected to kindness. Now, kindness to self, I mentioned it in the beginning, is also important. And what I meant by that is that most of the times we have this matrix through which we judge ourselves in terms of our professional achievements, jobs, or just being parents, right? And sometimes we are very harsh to ourselves. We blame ourselves for failing, for not being good parents, for not being good teachers, for not being good scholars. And being kind to yourself is that you confront yourself, or you think about your actions and say, okay, this is not my best. But let's be kind to myself and say, I will improve on it, but I'm not going to beat up myself about it. What that does is it kind of encourages you to think more positively and not dwell on your mistakes. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should just sweep all our mistakes under the rug. No, we should face them, right? But then in the process of unraveling what went wrong, we should be kind to ourselves. Now, there are a lot of cultural, historical, and religious instructions about kindness, right? And all of them basically teach us to sort of efface ourselves and our own needs, right? And offer what we have to the others, to the strangers, right? To those who might need help, and to those who might be under distress. Now, let's extend it to the planetary mode of thinking. You, me, and everyone else, we live on this planet. If kindness were to guide it, right, in philosophical terms, then we could replace what we call the instrumental logic, right? The instrumental reason is the kind of reason that makes us think about the things, not in terms of how they are in the world and what their value is, but in terms of instrumentalizing them. I see a tree. If I'm thinking instrumentally, what I'm thinking is, okay, if I cut it down and make it into the boards, what would it bring? Especially the timber values are really high. The lumber is more expensive. That's instrumental reasoning. That you look at the world and the resources that it has and instantly think of mobilizing them for profit, right? What kindness does is it dulls that instrumental imperative. It helps us challenge the cultural pressures and training that we have received, right? Our educational system, the competition of life kind of trains us that we must mobilize everything for gain, for profit, right? But kindness tells us that, okay, I can excel at what I do. I can succeed at what I do, but not at the cost of others. What it helps us in planetary terms is, what is the cost of my actions to the planet itself? If I'm building a house and there are 5 trees on the lot, am I worried about building the perfect house and it might force me to cut down those trees? Or if I'm kind to nature, would I build the house in a way that I can save the trees and still have my house? These things, right? Little things. If I run into an animal that is in distress, can I help that animal? The animals that we have as pets and companions, how do we treat them? How we treat the elderly, right? The culture where I come from, this is part of our training, kindness to strangers, but also kindness to our parents when they're old and frail. Every culture teaches us that. But kindness in a way where the other person doesn't feel embarrassed by it, where you offer it in a way that they take it as a gift, but not as a patronizing gesture, right? So kindness in action actually has to be kind, right? And then is the internal motivations. Now, here is the thing. We always think, am I being genuine? Am I being authentic? Right? Am I being sincere? The point is that start on the surface. When I was in the boarding school, I adopted this persona of being generous to others and kind. I was in 8th grade. The purpose was to become popular, right? Very selfish purpose. But as I lived my life, it became a habit. It became who I was. So many times you start with knowing that maybe you don't mean it, but as a performance. Being kind to others as a performance. Being kind to trees, plants, and animals as a performance. Maybe it makes you popular, right? Start there. Don't worry about what your motivations are. Eventually, as you do more and more of it, as you're kind to others, it will become part of you. Because there is only so much gap you can have between your performative identity and what you think of yourself. Eventually, they merge through practice. So these are some of my thoughts about kindness and its importance. But here is another thing, and this comes from the studies of the brain and consciousness. And that is that an act of kindness, an act in which you help someone else, is actually a deeply self-serving act. Because anytime you do that, it eases your anxiety. You feel good about yourself. So try it. Let's say you had a tough time with your boss at work, right? Or someone, said something terrible to you, and you're walking out of that office. Literally, your body is in a state of anxiety, right? The destructive response is to get angry and take it out on someone else, right? People do that. Or do self-harm, medicate yourself, drink, right? But what would literally help your body resolve that tension and calm down is if you perform an act of kindness. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, no. You're walking out of that office, you're angry, you have been disrespected, right? The first few people you encounter, be nice to them. Show just a smile. Speak softly to them. Nothing great, and I can promise you, I've experienced this. The softer you become and kinder and gentler you become to others under stressful conditions, the calmer you will be. Your body will kind of gain control, right? And you will not feel stressed. And that's where kindness to others becomes something that sustains us, almost becomes a self-sustaining act. So these are, some of my thoughts. As I mentioned in the introduction, I'm not going to delve into philosophy and history of these concepts. Part of what I'm saying is based in my reading and my understanding of the concepts, but also based in my experience, right? But I think it is more effective to share these thoughts and ideas with you in that experiential tone and not in that didactic mode where you're taking notes. What is kindness? No, in these simple but effective terms. So for now, these are some of my thoughts on kindness, its meaning, and its significance to the world, but to us ourselves as human beings in this world. If we practice it, I believe that we can transform the world, the way it functions, the way it treats everything, including the planet. Think about it. And if you have any suggestions and questions, feel free to send them my way through the course messaging system, and I'll be happy to read them and respond to them. Thank you, and peace and love.